We have confirmation that the president has asked the U.S. Trade Representative, Ambassador Robert Lighthizer, to study a higher tariff level on that tranche of $200 billion in Chinese imports that was currently slated to be on deck for potential tariffs at the end of this month. In a briefing call with reporters, two senior administration officials declined to say exactly what the catalyst was for the president's desire to ratchet up that level. They wouldn't comment on whether it had anything to do with China's recent devaluation of the yuan, but they did say that they're continually evaluating the tools that they have in this trade fight against China and signaling that they needed some stronger tools to get China to actually change its actions. These officials said that there were no current talks planned with China, that the president remains open to speaking with his counterpart, President Xi, and that they are discussing whether there is any opportunity for future engagement and whether such engagement is even appropriate at this point. Because they have raised this level and because there's already a comment period open where companies and stakeholders are going to be reaching out to USTR and telling them what the impact of these tariffs would be, these officials said that they are going to be extending the deadline for evaluating these tariffs from August 30th was the previous deadline for final comments. That was the earliest possible date that these tariffs could go into effect. That's going to be extended to September 5th, so just about a week later, as the president asks the U.S. Trade Representative to consider, but not finalize that strategy, but to consider possibly raising that tariff to 25% from 10%. Guys?
We need a tariff calendar to keep it all straight, Kayla. The fact that they're doing these public comments, and they did this with the auto tariffs as well, does that matter? Because as I understand it, of the 2,800 or so people or companies that weighed in on the auto tariffs, most of them were against it. But it doesn't seem to necessarily matter when the president seems to just make these decisions on a whim or based on how his negotiations are going.
Well, that's a little different, Sarah, because in that instance, that is sort of a blanket tariff on an industry where, of course, the industry is going to come out and say this is going to hurt us. This is essentially a selection process where the USTR is going through item by item, figuring out what items should be on this list to get to, a total aggregate number of $34 billion in exports or $16 billion in exports or $200 billion in exports. And so they are actually removing some products from these lists based on the comments that they are getting. But the question remains, once you get to a level as high as $200 billion, it's almost like it's everything but the kitchen sink at that point. So certainly a lot of companies that are lobbying the administration to be left off this list might not get that wish granted this time around.